Mafia, are you ready?
He said, are you ready?
This is Brotherly Love Wrestling Podcast, your first stop for everything professional wrestling. So sit back and enjoy wrestling talk at its finest with your hosts, Larry Hall and Joe Corrado.
Welcome, everybody, to Brotherly Love Wrestling. And our guest today on the show is none other than Avery Good, professional wrestler. So, Avery, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Well done on the introduction.
We're
Going through some name changes lately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right? Hopefully, I don't think I'm changing my name again. So I think this is it until the end. Although I did have a fan hit me up, a guy who I've known for a while. He was a huge Shakar fan back in the day. And when I announced I was kind of checking out, he was like, "Hey man, I know you're quitting, but here's this gimmick that I think you should do," and gave me all these ideas. I'm like, "But I got, real minimal time left. There's no time for new names or
where were you 10 years ago?
Right? Like, yeah, how about it?" And he was watching me 10 years ago. I know he was. But yeah. So it was funny when I got that message. I was like, yeah, I appreciate the time and effort you put into this. And the idea wasn't bad at all. But I was just like, yeah, I don't think there's time left for that. But yeah.
So you're at 9 matches left because you just had one of 10 this past weekend against, who is it against? Hunter Drake?
Hunter Drake. Yeah. It was supposed to be Adam Priest, who got stuck in Detroit. And the folks from New South hit me up, and I could even sense in the message they sent me, they were a little nervous because obviously if I have 10 left, not that I'm hand-picking my opponents, but I'm kind of putting out there people I'd like to wrestle. And, a lot of companies are doing me a real solid by giving me a lot of those matches that I've been asking for. But when they sent the message, they're like, "Hey, Adam's not going to make it. Are you still going to come? Are you willing to wrestle somebody else?" And that kind of goes along with, being Avery Good, professional wrestler. Yeah, man, for all I know, 5 or 10 people paid and bought tickets to see me wrestle that day. So I'm not in the business of letting people down. If I told you I would be there, I'm going to be there, as long as it's within my power to be there. And I was pumped with that match afterwards. The kid was 20 years old. He worked his tail off. Bright future for him. I could tell Cabana Man Dan came over as soon as we were done putting it together, and he's like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "Dude, that was fun." You can sense when you're building a match, if you have a great time. I just met that kid for the first time, and we had a blast putting it together. Real easy to work with. And so right away I was like, if I had to guess, I'm going to say this is going to go great just based off of the good time we had building that match and putting it together. We hit it off right away. So as much as I was looking forward to wrestling Adam Priest, not that I'm happy he got stuck in Detroit, but I was happy with the end result anyway. After being bummed, kind of going in, not getting the match I wanted, I left with a big old smile on my face.
Now, how long have you been in the wrestling business for? Has it been over 15?
Yeah, 16 and a half-ish from my first day of training.
So
April 1st will be 16 from my first match.
Okay. So times have definitely changed in 16. It doesn't sound like a long time, but it's definitely changed a lot. Now, going over matches and whatnot with younger talent, you said the Hunter was 20 years old. Now, do you usually kind of lead the way and kind of gear it or do you let the youngsters put in a fair amount of input?
I definitely like their input, and that was my favorite thing about him is I'm kind of leading the way, building the story. I pride myself in storytelling and finding a reason to have the match other than just here's my cool moves, where's your cool moves, all right, 1 2 3, let's get out of here. And he was I can tell he was eager and he was ready to learn, so he's letting me lead the dance. But he did my favorite thing was anytime I was like, "Yo man, what do you have, this is the situation we're in, what would you do in this situation?" He always had an idea. He always had something. And I remember doing this as a young wrestler, and it drives me nuts when a guy does it to me where I'm like, "Hey man, what do you do in this situation?" And it's what do you want me to do? Or I could do anything. Like, no. Like, you tell me what you would do. And like, I got us to this situation, right? Like, here's how we're feeling in the match right now, or here's what's happening story wise in this match. Like, how would your character respond to this? And every time I threw that at him, like, he had an answer for me. So yeah, like, I kind of led the dance, but he had 50% of the input.
I guess that's a really good thing to see when you have these younger talents who are coming up, that they're that smart and at least into the business to know to be able to have that ready instead of just fumbling and saying, oh, well, yeah, I can do anything.
Right. Or like, what do you want me to do? Or I don't know. Like, I don't know is the worst thing. Like, I don't like, and especially a kid who found out when I found out that we were having this match. It's not like he had 2 weeks to, watch my matches or 2 weeks to plan what he wanted to do. Like, it was thrown on both of us that day, and then he came ready to play.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think like the moves are the things that change in that scenario, like where they're going from. Like back in the day, it might have been like, how do you feel in this scenario? You might get something like small, but now like the way the athleticism, the way that a lot of these wrestlers have athleticism, like you get to that point, the move changes. It might not be the scenario doesn't change. It's just the spot.
Yep, absolutely. And everybody brings something different to the table. And the story changes. Like, I had a story in mind to wrestle Adam Priest that all got thrown out the window. So even when I met Hunter Drake, it was kind of like we kind of created the story as we got to know each other a little bit better. But it all fell into place really, really nicely. There's no struggle at all as far as building that match. And you talk about how wrestling has changed, right? 16 years ago was kind of the beginning of like everyone within wrestling having access to all the wrestling, right? Like, this is after tape trading, but it's still the beginning of like YouTube getting all of this wrestling up where we can all sit down and watch, Japanese wrestling and Mexican wrestling and wrestling, this style of wrestling and world of sport. Like nowadays, for the most part, all the good wrestlers can do pretty much all of that. Right. So 16 years ago, it's kind of like guys had a style. Now everybody just has access to all of the wrestling ever. And you just kind of take it, you learn as much as you can, and you kind of form your own style out of it. But yeah, wrestling's changed a whole lot over those 16 years.
So has your style changed over the 16 years as well? Or
yeah, 100%. As I've gotten better, like I wasn't one of those guys who, came out of the womb like this crazy good wrestler. Like I had to work. Like I wouldn't say I was bad at first. It was a big learning curve, and a lot of work went into becoming a great wrestler. Like I'm jealous as shit when I see these kids are like 20 years old and they're like, boom, boom, boom. I'm like, man, that was not me. Like I had to work for almost every ounce of talent that I have or ability that I have. So yeah, like definitely my style's evolved as I've matured mentally as a wrestler and physically. Especially like I remember debuting in Chikara and like definitely getting off to a slow start because I felt like I had to do all these things that I saw like Fire Ant doing or Mike Quackenbush doing or Ophidian doing. And it's all these beautiful flying maneuvers and this, that, and the other thing. And that's just not me. Like I'm not nimble in the air by any means. So I started to like really just slow myself down and think about like don't do that stuff. Like even if I can pull it off, it's going to be ugly compared to how beautifully those guys can fly around the ring. So think about what I do, like work towards my strengths, and then also like get good at this stuff that I could shine on. Like I can be a good base. I can be a stronger guy in the ring. That's something I can control by just working in the gym. Like I'm never going to be nimble in the air. I'm just not comfortable there. So then I looked at myself, in the mirror and said, what do I need to get better at? What can I get better at? Kind of what wrestler do I want to be? Which guys do I want to emulate that I love? And I built myself in that direction. So as I started checking off those goals, like learning in the ring from like guys like Claudio, or, just improving from being in the gym, or improving from just being at training with guys like Hollow Wicked and Drew Gulak and those kind of guys. Like, yeah, you definitely improve and your style changes as you kind of add more tools to your tool belt.
I mean, you're kind of the names you just dropped. You're kind of blessed to be under that wing as well. I mean, you see how talented those guys are. I mean, as long as you're paying attention long enough, I mean, you got a good shot at picking something up.
Yeah, they're some of the greatest wrestlers in the world, and I was lucky they were all in the same building.
Yeah.
So it was just like right place at the right time and being smarter to grasp onto what they were throwing out. And then being willing to get there. Like that's an hour and a half, hour and 40-minute drive for me every Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like that's not easy to do, especially for a young guy with no money and a piece of crap car. Like that was an obstacle. But I saw what was in front of me. Like I didn't start training at Chikara. I wasn't originally a Chikara student. And the two guys who started training me were great. But the minute they actually had Quack come in for a seminar, the minute I saw like what he was capable of, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, not that I'm in the wrong place, but it's time for me to move up in the world as far as like what I need to learn. Like I started under two guys, Martial Law and Love Bug, which were like Allentown guys. And they were great. Like they taught me how to respect the business. They taught me how to keep my ears open. They taught me how to work hard. They taught me how to bump, taught me how to carry myself around. But when it came to like what they knew compared to Quack or then Claudio or Hero or Gulak or Hollow Wicked or Fire, all these guys, like that's what I needed to know. And that's what I wanted. So that's what I went and got.
So is that something that you've been casually handing down to the younger generation as you've been going along as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And like it all kind of gets blended up in your brain. Like, sure, there's specific things that I can say, hey, I learned this from Claudio or whatever. You remember those specific moments. One thing I always tell younger wrestlers, I was like, hey, you're going to get tons of advice in your wrestling career. Some of it will be amazing. Like, you know it the minute you hear it. Like something goes off in your brain. You're like, hey, that applies to me directly. And those moments, I feel like sometimes you remember. Like I can remember specific things said to me by exactly who told me, where I was, and when they said it. I said, then you're going to give it some advice that's just might not be bad advice. It's just not for you. So like you're allowed to let it go in one ear and out the other, and still say thank you and be appreciative somebody tried to help you. And sometimes you get some garbage advice and you know it right away. But yeah, all of that stuff that stuck with me for one reason or another, like I feel like that's what naturally comes out of me when I see somebody who needs that advice, just because that's what I know and that's what helped me, move my way up the ladder in independent wrestling.
Well, Avery, and since you're on that track, I have a question that I ask a lot of people who are on our show.
Hold on, I gotta stop you right there. I just noticed that Dan Champion shirt. That's amazing.
I wore that just for you.
I appreciate it. I don't know why it took me so long to notice it.
That's all right. I got a Hollow Wicked hat on too. So.
Oh yeah, I do see those new hats. Yeah, I almost got one of those. I almost hit him up. I was like, hey, can I get a free one? Hook a brother up. But
I mean, you probably could have.
He would have too. He would have gave it to me.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, so yeah. One piece of advice that you have gotten in your career that you have used day in, day out for your entire career, something that has stuck with you and it just rings true no matter what you're doing in the business.
I got two, I think, that pop in my brain right away. And they both come from Quack, who, like, I know gets a real bad rap nowadays, but nobody can deny whether you like him or you don't. Like, when it comes to professional wrestling and understanding, the direction wrestling is headed and what it takes to be a good wrestler, like, that dude's a genius. That you can't deny from him. And the two things that he said to me, one is do something to become a better wrestler every single day. Do at least, right? You can do more than one thing, but at least one thing to be a better wrestler every single day. That could be go to training. That could be go to the gym. That could be studying tape. That could be putting some money away to buy new gear. Like, even that makes you a better wrestler. So even if it's just one little thing a day, right? You're chipping away and you're constantly improving. That's something that always stuck with me. And then something else, it kind of goes back to like the slow start I got. And I kind of even talked about this a little bit already about looking myself in the mirror and figuring out what I do good and emphasizing those things. And it was like, don't go in front of a crowd, especially then, like we were wrestling like in front of like sold out ECW arena crowds. It's like, don't go in front of a crowd and do something you can only do 9 out of 10 times, right? When you're in front of a crowd, you do all the things you've mastered and all the things that are going to make you look great. And I wouldn't say I've always followed that rule. There's definitely sometimes I've taken risks, right? And sometimes it pays off and sometimes it doesn't. But that's kind of always calculated. It's like, all right, I feel the need, like I have to take that risk right now. Or it's in front of a crowd I'm more comfortable making a mistake in front of. That's also another time you'll take that risk. But those two pieces of advice, like one always just made me a better professional wrestler. And the other one just kind of really helped me, like I said, focus in on my strengths and emphasize those things. And then you even kind of learn to, like an example, like the match I had at New South the other day, right? The first thing I asked that kid was, hey, what do you do great all the time? So you could even then pass down that knowledge and teach somebody else, like, especially if we just met, like, let's do all the stuff you do wonderfully today. Like, let's make you look like $1 million while we're in this ring together.
So basically, this run, your first spot, your first stop on your, we're gonna call this a farewell tour.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't plan on like, I don't know if I could ever disappear from wrestling. Like, that's not my plan.
I was gonna ask you that.
Yeah, I think maybe like a little bit of time off, but I want to do commentary. Like, that's something I've done for years in Chikara, and almost every show I'm on, I'm like, hey, if you got spots, I'll jump on that table. Like, I love doing commentary. I think it's something that comes very natural to me. So like that, my plan would be find like a monthly home, like to a place I can go once a month and really get to know the wrestlers that are there. Still get to see maybe some of my friends or just be involved in wrestling in some way or another. But like once a month, sit down and do some commentary. I think that'll like help me like feed the itch a little bit when I leave, you know, because there's definitely going to be like wrestling's been a huge part of my life forever. So to back away at a time where I really do feel like I'm wrestling at my best, it's going to leave a big, wide open, like just void in my life that I'm going to need to fill with wrestling still somehow. So that's kind of my hope, is that I'll land somewhere, have a nice little comfortable seat on a commentary table.
Is there anywhere that you're looking at in particular? It's probably in the area, right?
Yeah, I mean, local would be great, but then at the same time, like, even though they already have a great commentary team, like, I'd love to be at Beyond Wrestling, you know, because that's like 4-hour drive. That ain't bad. And I'm just infatuated. I love Sidney Bacabella. So any chance I have to work with that guy, like, I'll jump all over that. So that'd be a great place to go. But yeah, other than that, no, like, I just want a place that's consistent. Maybe that's why Beyond pops into my brain, because there's really nothing local here that's, you know,
not as
every
consistent
month
as that. Well, yeah, they run weekly now. So
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. So maybe he might have some spots for me. My trouble with Beyond has always been, especially like the uncharted territories, is their Thursdays. And as a teacher in my shoot life, like, we get 4 days off a year. So it's like Thursdays are just not in the cards. So like Drew and I have talked forever about like me coming up there, but it's always like, hey, can you come this Thursday? No, I can't. So it's like that kind of takes all of that out of the picture for me. But again, just like a company like that, like, give me that once a month, that third Saturday of the month or whatever it is. And I'm hoping that fills the void for me.
I mean, it probably won't fill it completely, but at least you'll be there surrounded by it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you're always going to watch and just be like, oh, especially you see some new kids coming up, whatever, like, I want to wrestle that guy. I want to wrestle that guy. I know that's going to happen, and I'm trying to prepare for it. I mean, I can't really tell you how I'm going to handle it until it comes. But I feel like one of my things going into wrestling was like, I don't want to have any regrets as far as like the effort I put into it. So I feel like I'm leaving with that. And I knew it was a crapshoot. It's like, hey, you can go in and give it everything you have, and you could land where you want to land, or you might not. So I remember having those thoughts right out of the gate. It was like, hey, the only thing I can control though is I'm going to give it everything I got. And I'm going to leave feeling I did that. So like, hopefully that helps a little bit.
Now, you mentioned watching the younger people come up and getting the itch to wrestle them. Now, do you still watch wrestling for the most part? Certain promotions.
It depends. I'll turn wrestling on like what's on TV, especially AEW now, because just so many of my buddies are up there. But that's it. It's like I'll turn it on, and I've never been a huge like sit down and watch tons of wrestling kind of person. It's funny, my kid's the same way. So I grew up with a cousin who I actually used to tag with early on in my career, and he'll watch wrestling all day. And like him and I are 7 months apart. We grew up like brothers. So he always had wrestling on. And to me, I was the kid, as soon as it came on and I watched for 2 minutes, it was like my shirt was off. I'm like, all right, bud, let's go. Let's wrestle. Let's go. My kid is literally the same way. Like, I don't know if he's ever sat and watched an entire match front to back without being like, all right, Dad, let's wrestle. Like, we got a trampoline out back. We got a big old couch. So he's always just like, even the other day we had like some friends over with their kids. And it was their first time here. And like within 10 minutes, both boys had their shirts off. And they're like, what are they doing? I was like, oh, that's probably my kid. They're probably wrestling. Like, he was born that way. I can't help it.
All right. So when you do watch, or if you do watch, are you able to like disconnect from being a professional wrestler and like kind of just lose yourself in it? Or
usually no, but that's my gauge on like if it's a good match. Like, if you get me to have like if all of a sudden I realize I made that disconnect, I'm like, all right, this is a great match. Like they sucked me in. Like they got me out of like trying to steal their spots or like even without meaning to do it, like critiquing their movements in the ring. Like if all of a sudden I'm sucked in, like that's a good match. Like that's a match I'll go tell somebody about. Like, yo, did you see this the other night? Blah, 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 blah. Every once in a while, like a big high spot or something will get my attention too. But for the most part, it's like, yeah, if I realize I've made that disconnect, that's my kind of match. A lot of times I'll watch, like, if I know I got a match coming up, like I knew I was wrestling Adam Priest the other day. So I was like, I spent a week and a half filling myself up on Adam Priest matches. So that's usually the wrestling I'll watch. Like I'll get to the gym, I'll get on like the stairs or something or on a treadmill and I'll put wrestling on and it just kind of helps pass the time and like two birds with one stone. I'm doing my homework while getting myself ready physically. That's probably where I watch most of my wrestling actually.
Now, was there any match recently that you saw that you were just like, wow, this is incredible, that you didn't wrestle in?
Maybe like John Silver, Daniel Bryan the other day I really loved.
Yeah.
Like everything, or Bryan Danielson again, everything Bryan Danielson's doing right now is like just amazing. Like he's just having fun again.
Yeah.
Like to me, I even teach that all the time. I'm like, look, if you're in the ring and you're enjoying yourself, Ricky Shane Page is also fantastic. He always looks like he's having the most fun out of anybody in the building. And I'm super jealous when I see him doing that.
And that's no matter what character he's playing either. When he was a pure baby face, he always looked like he was having a great time. I mean, he was getting his ass kicked a little bit more, but even his heel run, his recent heel run, he was having the blast.
Yeah. And like, I tell people that all the time. I'm like, if you're in here enjoying yourself, like the crowd is going to come along with that. Like if you're having fun, that is contagious. So yeah, like anything, like I said, Bryan Danielson right now, he looks like he's at the peak of just enjoying what he's doing. So pretty much anything he touches, but yeah, I really liked him in Silver the other night. I guess that's the first thing that popped to my brain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the most recent one. So that's the question I asked. So you delivered. So next on tour, I wanted to touch back on what you were talking about at the beginning, you not changing your gimmick anymore. Now, there is a stipulation on one of your next upcoming matches at Pizza Party Pro against a familiar foe /friend /frenemy. And the outfielders, Molly and Boomer, and yourself and
Big Dan.
So the stipulation is if you lose, you'll have to morph back into Dasher Hatfield.
Right. And I said that confidently, like, I'm not changing my game. This is me. And I'm confident I ain't losing that match. Like, and I also had said, like, I feel I'm wrestling the best I've ever wrestled right now. And Boomer got me once, and I'll give it to the kid. He learned. He learned from his old man. He came in with a game plan. If you watch that match, he had a game plan from start to finish, and he carried it out. And he happened to catch me in a position where there was no way out for me. There literally wasn't. Like, if you watch that, I just gave him a big Liger bomb from the top. And the way my legs were positioned under him, he popped up and he threw me in a rear naked choke for probably the fourth time in that match. And like all his weight was like in my hips. There was nowhere for me to go. There was no way out. So, I mean, I'd like to say lightning doesn't strike twice, but I got Big Dan with me first off. So I feel like I have the better tag team partner and I'm just better than he is. So I'm quite confident I'm leaving that one with his mask in my hand and not a mask on my face. I did just break it to my little guy today that was happening, and you should have seen his eyes light up. It's like, oh. He's like, Dad. He's like, Dad, do you want to put your mask back on? I'm like, no, buddy, no, definitely not.
That was like the character arc for you demasking. It was like you're almost like reborn as a wrestler again, as odd as that might sound.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like it's like what helped evolve you to what you are today. Losing that mask was kind of like it almost needed to happen.
Yeah, and I felt that in my heart that it needed to happen for a while. Like I felt like we talk about again, like enjoying yourself in the ring and having fun. And I felt like I was getting real complacent because I knew I could go out and not challenge myself and still get a good reaction with the things I was doing. And like that wasn't fun for me. Challenging myself was fun. So when like I first brought up the idea of all of that happening, I was literally told like, no, I think that's career suicide for you. I don't think you can do it. And like, that's all I needed to hear. I was like, oh, okay, well, guess what? Like, not only can I do it, but I will do it and I will succeed. Like, thanks for doubting me, because that's the only motivator I needed. And I knew even before that, like, yeah, I got that in me. Like, most people, they meet me and they're like, oh, okay, you're a real nice guy. And I'll 100% agree. Very natural baby face. But, there's no challenge that in this business that I'm not at least, willing to try my best. And that one to me wasn't even really a challenge. Like, that was something like I just knew I had in me and I could do. And I'm still just thoroughly enjoying it. Like, it's so much fun.
Yeah, that was kind of like that was like a big heel run for you. And that was a very effective heel run for you.
Yeah, I put on some really good matches during that time. And like I said, and for the first time, I was feeling like I was accomplishing something again, because like, being over as a baby face and putting on those kind of matches, I was doing consistently. So I was like, all right, like, I know I can do that. Like, I need that new challenge. I need that, another reason to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and go to the gym. Another reason to drive down to Philly and go to training, right? Because when you don't have those motivators, that stuff's hard to do. But when you have a reason for why you're doing it, like, that's all I needed.
Yeah, I mean, you were hated more than Icarus and Huckabee, and that was pretty hard to do at that time. So
I don't know about Icarus. I don't know if anybody's ever hated more than Icarus.
Yeah,
like, I still go back. You want to say hi, bud? Say what's up.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Little man just had his first wrestling match the other day.
Did he win?
He had 5 of them. I say he went 3-2.
That's
nice.
They do like a little
That's
novice
really
thing,
good.
5 different kids. So he had a good day. He's doing really good though. It's his first year. I'm proud of him.
Nice.
Proud of him.
Is he hooked yet?
Huh?
Is he hooked?
The live wrestling he loves. Like, practice where we're just doing drills, not interested.
Yeah.
But he understands why he does it. He does it, but you can tell. Look at him. He's mad. He's got to do it. And in a minute, like, the head coach, because I helped out a little bit. But when the head coach is like, all right, boys, line up shortest to tallest, or kids, because we got 5 girls on the team. And then, like, he loves the live wrestling. We got 6 girls on the team.
That's the thing, though. You got to hone that energy till you get to the match. Till you get to your wrestling match. So you got to build that excitement up. That's why you can't do a match every day. You wouldn't have that excitement.
He definitely got gas too, because I said they had 5 of them, and that 5th one, he's like, I'm done. Yeah.
At least he knows his limits as a kid. I didn't know that.
I even asked him, I was like, bud, you want to go out for another one? He's like, no. I'm like, all right, come on, you got to get out there. Let's go. But I should have listened to him. He was right. He didn't have another one.
So where were we? We were talking about. I think we were at Shakara. Weren't we in Shakara?
Okay.
The hell were we talking about?
We were talking about the upcoming match.
We were talking about the upcoming match at Pizza Party Pro.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that is match 2 of 10. Does that count?
Match 2 of 10. I might have to announce now too. I think 10 might quickly become 11, even though I'm finding a loophole where 2 of them will be the same day.
Okay.
So I'm counting it as 1, because I got offered something. I was like, oh, my 10 are filled up, but I was like, I don't know, the itch got me already, where I was like, but I really want that. So I might set 10 to 11 if everything falls into place. But I don't think I can announce like who those matches are or where that is yet.
You have everything filled right now in your 10 or 11?
8 definitely filled. 2 that are like in the works, and I'm reserving I'm not taking any other offers just because I'm confident those 2 will kind of pull through, and I'm really excited about them. So there's 8 definitely concrete at this point. 9 if I count that one day as whatever. Those 2 matches as 1.
Okay.
All right. So without revealing who they are, is this going to be all first after this match coming up at Pizza Party Pro? Are these all going to be first time ever matches?
Let me think. Definitely at least 1 won't be. But every other one I'm at least first time singles matches.
Okay.
There's one on there that you guys would enjoy, but I'll let you know when it comes out. But it's somebody I've wrestled in a tag match twice. And somebody, if you look back at my career, you're like, they never had a singles match, but we never did. And I'm really excited it's happening.
Now I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
I have a couple.
A lot of the other ones, like, people can figure out. Like, a lot of the other ones are people I've been very public about, like, I want to wrestle this person. I want to wrestle this person. And vice versa. And it just hasn't happened yet. So, like, yeah, if anybody follows my Twitter at all, they'll probably figure out a lot of them.
Well, I saw one member of Dark Order said that he would do it on the cheap,
Yeah. And
which
um,
which would be a pretty big match. That should
yeah,
happen
and
on
that's one where
that promotion.
that would be wonderful. And they're going to be very local to me twice over the next 2 months. So that's one, like, nothing's concrete again, but I'm hoping to, maybe whether I get that match or any match, like, just get up there again one more time. Hopefully get in the ring again one more time there. That was amazing to stand there in the ring. Like, I could see my wife and kids from standing in the ring. It was, a moment I'll cherish forever. But to go back again I'd love that to be one of the 10, even if I don't know, job out in another minute. That's cool with me.
Now we've had a couple different people that have either appeared on Dark or Elevation or wrestled for the company, and we always ask them, like, what was the experience? It's always been overwhelmingly positive. There's never been one bad thing to say about the happenings of AEW.
Yeah, they welcomed me with open arms. I got to do it twice, once in Newark and once in Philly. And especially the Newark one for me was like a huge reunion, because there are so many people there that I came up with that I haven't seen in years. Like Adam Cole and I actually knew each other before, like probably about a year or two before he ever even started training.
He's from that area, right? He's from Lehigh Valley, right?
Yeah, pretty close. I think not in the Lehigh Valley. I think maybe a little outside of the Lehigh Valley, but initially where I started training with Martial Law and Love Bug, we had a guy there wrestled. His name was Sebastian McCool, and he was an IT guy at Adam Cole's high school. And so Adam would ask him a lot about like wrestling and training. And then he came to a couple shows when he was about 16, just to be around wrestling and like set up rings. And I was 21 at the time, maybe. So he would come to me a lot and ask questions and advice and things like that. So him and I were pretty close in the early parts of his career. And so like, as soon as we saw each other, it was just like, we probably haven't seen each other in 10 years. It was like big hug and what's up. I haven't seen Ruby Riott and Ruby Soho now in a while. And like, we were a team for a whole year in Chicago. We're best buddies, man. We haven't seen each other since she left for WWE. Uno and Dos, the 2.0 guys, all the old Chikara heads.
Mm-hmm.
So like, just like walking around there that day was just like hug after hug after hug after hug after hug. And then throw on top of that anytime you turn your head, it's like, oh, there's Chris Jericho. Oh, there's the Big Show. Oh, there's whatever. Just a cool day. And you get to eat good food all day. And they even pay you for that. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Doesn't sound like you're doing too bad to me.
No.
So when you go into school the next day, do your kids watch you? Did they watch you wrestle?
My students?
Yeah.
I do try to like keep that a secret. Which is sometimes difficult, because like I teach in the town I grew up in. So a lot of the kids in the school, like I know their aunt, I went to school with their mom or whatever. So every once in a while, I'll have a kid come up and be like, hey, my uncle told me this about you. And it's weird because I'll never deny it, but then it doesn't really spread like wildfire, kind of like I thought it would, or, at first. I had a student last year, though, that I let in on the secret probably more than most. Just because like during dismissal, it actually worked out last year where he was the last kid in the room for like 5 minutes. And so like he was talking to me about AEW one day, and he's a big Orange Cassidy fan, like everyone is. And so I was like, all right, bud, let me show you this. And I showed him like a picture of me and Orange Cassidy together. And he's like, what? So I know like he like YouTube some stuff of mine, but that's probably like the only kid who's really been like in on the secret that didn't know me through some walk of life, outside of school.
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, you probably made his day just by showing him that picture of Orange Cassidy.
Oh, yeah. He thought it was the coolest thing ever. I'm trying to think. I Drew Gulak called and talked to one of my kids one time. In a normal Drew fashion, he just messed with the kid, which was kind of funny. One time I remember wrestling in Hellertown. Shikara did an anniversario in Hellertown, like years after they stopped running there. They did like one. And I remember being in the ring and looking over and seeing, he wasn't one of my students, but he was a big football fan. So him and I talked a lot, like in the hallways and things like that. But he had no idea that was me under the mask. So I thought that was pretty cool. And another unique story was there was a kid, and he came from like more of a poor family, and I knew the family pretty well. And one day he had a Dasher Hatfield t-shirt on walking around the school. It was like the Mike Tyson one. And I was like, bud, where'd you get that shirt at? And he's like, I don't know. So he had got it hand me down from somewhere and had no idea that it was me on his shirt. And I just kind of left it at that. But so every once in a while, the worlds do kind of cross over.
That's bizarre. He had no idea where he got it from.
He didn't even know what it was. He was like, "Oh no."
That's
I
so
was like,
bizarre.
Okay. Yeah.
That's you, and he has no idea. Like not even an inkling.
I never told him.
I feel like he needs to know.
Yeah.
Like, that's some
Like,
information.
my school only goes up to 5th grade, so he's probably got to be like a junior or a senior now.
Yeah,
Find him. I was like, "Hey man, you remember that day?" He was like, "No."
No, who are you again? I was your
Right.
teacher.
Why are you talking to me? Stranger danger.
So, Avery, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, we really appreciate you talking with us. We can't wait to see how these next 8 or 9, 10, however many it fluctuates to or doesn't work out for you. It's been a pleasure watching
Hold on,
you.
wait. I gotta call. I'm not letting him go yet.
Go ahead.
I got a couple more questions.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't cut me off yet.
Go right
I
ahead.
should have had this interview a long time ago. So, leaving the wrestle, is there anything that you're leaving in the ring? Is there anything that you haven't accomplished that you wanted to accomplish?
Yeah, definitely. Like making a full-time career out of wrestling was like, and I can't even say it was always the goal, because getting into wrestling, it wasn't. And I do feel like if there is one regret, it was not making that a goal earlier. Like getting into wrestling for me was, I was a huge ECW guy as a kid. Like my dad would take me down Ag Hall. Like, so I got to see ECW like in its prime, and it really brought back my love of wrestling, because like a lot of people, like I liked it as a kid, and then it got not cool. And, like, so I'm talking about like, slightly after like the Doink the Clown era, because I was all into that. So probably like right after that, I started getting out of it. And ECW is, again, my cousin he's like, "You see this thing on MSG at 11 o'clock on Tuesdays?" And my mom would let me stay up and watch it. And like, I just loved the brotherhood and the camaraderie about what they were building. And so my first goal was to find that. And like, I knew right away for me, like that was Chikara. The first time I ever, I went with Fire Ant and Retail Dragon to when they were early on these Chikara shows, and like just help do the ring and do secure. But I could tell as soon as I watched it, like, that's it. Like, this thing is special for one reason. I didn't understand maybe at the time how big it would evolve into. And then like, I think it was the trios when the 1, 2, 3 kid wrestled Generico. And that was the weekend, like, at least in my heart, and I think in a lot of people's brains, it was like, okay, like we officially like changed the world of wrestling and created something special in wrestling. Like out of love for that, like momentum we had to last much longer. But like in that moment, I was like, okay, I achieved that goal. Like this is, a family business that, like, by family, I mean like everybody involved treated each other like brothers and sisters, and everybody understood that it took all hands on deck to make this happen. Like we don't have millions of dollars. And in order to create something special in wrestling, like everybody had to do their job and fulfill their role. So like that was my biggest check mark. And then like, it probably took like maybe for like Drew to get signed. And I knew how great Drew was at the time. For me to actually like, again, look myself in the mirror and go like, why can you not do that? Like if your friends are doing it, guys you came up with, like Claudio is a different story. We all knew where Claudio was going, right? But then I think it was with Drew where it's like, okay, like if I work harder, like if I make that my goal, I could achieve that. And a lot of that really just comes with like saying that out loud. Like the minute I was like vocalizing, hey, that's my goal, what I want to do now, like I could see people going out of their way to help me. Going out of their way to put in a word for me here or there, or like giving me the advice I needed to make that next step. And I did get the call about almost 2 years ago in February to go down to WWE for a tryout. And I was at the one where like we literally got there the day COVID shut the world down. So there was like 50 of us. Yeah. Like of all day, I did the math. It was like, I've been wrestling like, I think it was like, I forget how many thousands of days. And it was like, we got there on a Wednesday. It was, you probably remember where you were. And we went through physicals, and I get to my hotel room, and I'm with this guy, Jason Harrison, out of Chicago area. And we're just kind of in the room, like excited about the next day and cutting our promos for each other. And I start getting texts from like Gulak and the 2.0 guys. They're like, hey, like, we don't think you're coming here tomorrow. Like, they're not setting up all the rings for you guys to have this tryout. And like the TVs, like NCAA shuts down, NHL shuts down. And so in the WWE world, they're now realizing like they're not taking down the NXT setup to set up 7 rings for us to do a tryout. They now have to film SmackDown there that Friday. So it was like, I'm like, yo, Drew, they didn't tell us not to come there tomorrow. But it was the next morning, we all went, got dressed and went to the building, and we understood. They're just like, hey, like, as of Monday, this was a great idea. The world has changed. Like, we're going to let you guys cut your promos. We got like a 30-minute hour seminar with Regal. And by the time that was over, they had our flights home for us that day. So I was just like, oh, that's my luck, right? They did promise us we could all go back. And then I got the invite to go back in April, and I broke my leg in May. So it was just like, something in my heart was just like, maybe that's God's way. And I'm not a big religious guy, but maybe that's his way of being like, bro, you got a real good life. You got 2 great kids and a great wife. Like, this is where you're meant to be. And that's what you're meant for on this planet. And that ain't bad, man. So I'm not going off into what am I doing next? Like, my life's going to be good one way or the other. With that said, right, I got 10 matches left. If somebody wants to give me a job between now and the end of those 10, I'm all on board.
You're not saying you don't want to do it. You're saying if it doesn't happen, you're okay with it. But for anyone watching this, he would like it to happen.
Absolutely.
Yes. Like, that's the dream, right? To just make a living off of wrestling and really to show my kids. That was why it was such a big deal for me to have that AEW, like, be out there in front of 16,000 people with my kids in the audience. So they know, like, all of that work they seen me do, all of those days I haven't been home, like, that wasn't for nothing. Like, that was, I achieved that goal, and my kids watched me, get jobbed out, but that really is irrelevant to me. Like, they watched me in a ring in front of 16,000 people, man. And that was the best feeling I ever had in wrestling.
We need that feeling to be had more.
Yes.
I'll take it more. But like I said, I'm riding off kind of, into the sunset still. I love teaching, and teaching is something I found through wrestling. So I do thoroughly enjoy my job. And like that, and really all of me hanging it up has to do with, like, I'm struggling to leave my house every time I go to wrestle. I don't know if, like, it's like COVID where I was with my wife and kids nonstop, but like anytime I gotta, like, even if it's for a day, like, I'm just like, I don't want to leave. Like, I feel like I'm missing out on stuff, and they're getting bigger. My daughter's going to be 9. So it's like, I know in a couple of years, she ain't even going to care that I'm around. So like, I want to soak up all that time where, she wants me here. And so it's like when I think, I'm going to miss wrestling, but what am I not going to miss? You know what I mean? I'm not going to miss those moments with my kids. Like, that would be a regret of mine. If I, 10 years from now, looking back saying I missed this or that, that would drive me nuts. And that I couldn't handle. So like, I'm going to miss wrestling, but it's about the experiences I'm going to have by not being at a wrestling show. So I mean, that's where that kind of got me to where I'm at today, and being not only good with it, but happy about it.
Right. Well, that's probably the hardest thing I think most people equate when people walk away from wrestling is, you walk away, whether it be injury or whether on your own terms. And there's always that, I walked away and I'm good, but I'm not happy. I want to go back. Being happy and being content in that decision, I think, is one of the hardest things in professional wrestling is staying away.
How many people actually walk out on their own terms nowadays?
Yeah.
Like, how many people have actually successfully done that?
Yeah. And so I got that under my belt too. And I honestly think that helps me like stay away, you know what I mean? And not come back. And like, as much as I'm going to miss it, like, that part's just, I'm not going to sit here and deny that. I'm going to miss it like crazy. And like I said before, I don't know how I'm going to handle that till it starts happening. And, I'm at shows doing commentary, and I don't have my boots in the car and things like that. But we'll cross all those bridges when we come to them.
Well, Avery, thanks again. We appreciate it. It was good finally talking to you after we've watched you in Shakara since 2017 to see that evolution. And it's been great watching you. Thank you again. But we're not done. You still have 9 matches ahead of you, so we can't wait to see these final 9.
Possibly 10.
Possibly 10.
Possibly 10.
Yeah.
All right, fellas. I appreciate it. This was a really good time, man. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right.
Great having you. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah, have a good one.
All right.
You too.